Hey, everybody, we're going to take just a minute and allow folks to join us here. We welcome you to office hours on this, hopefully a beautiful night. I'm not sure where you all are, but I know it's hot where I am. And Rynda, I got to believe it is for you as well, isn't it?
Oh, always, Dan.
Yeah, I was talking to one of my Florida families, and they were talking about, I guess there was a little bit of a dip in the temperature, but then it, of course, shoots back up, pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, my husband kept telling me, oh, they said there's going to be a cold front. Well, our cold front meant that it got down to like 92.
Oh, wow.
Heat index 98,
Right. And not
100.
only that, but you guys are also stuck down there also with humidity as well, aren't you?
Oh, yes.
So, but anyway, like we're doing, we're just actually do us a favor if you would in the chat, put in your student's graduation year for us. We'd love to, again, in the chat box, just let us know your graduation year and maybe even where you're from. That would be cool too, if you don't mind. But we're excited to be with you here tonight. Whoever's here, kind of the way that we approach this is whoever's here is meant to be here. We hope we can be a resource for you. We're going to talk through just a few things tonight. And as always, I will do this. I will say that we've got the disclaimer up here on the screen. Please realize we are not here to give you tax, legal, or investment advice. That's not our deal. So in those particular cases, you do indeed need to seek out advice from a professional in each of those areas. I mean, that's really the deal. And here's the other thing I want to stress to you tonight. Sometimes we're having some folks that are asking admissions questions, and part of that's because of my background, as far as what I do. But we are not here to also take you away from those kinds of relationships. If you're already working with an independent counselor, or you've got a financial planner or somebody that's a specialist in this kind of stuff, heck, we have those people even come to these sessions as well. But anyway, let's see who we've got here. So for those of you who um, put your details in here, let's see, we've got Seattle 2023, welcome. Houston 2024, New York City 2023, another 2025, 2023, Sanford 2024, welcome. Nice to have you guys with us. And anybody else that wants to put your graduation in into the chat box, feel free to do that. By the way, tonight also do us another favor. Please, please, please go ahead and put your questions only in the Q&A section for us. Do not use the chat box. It just makes it that much easier for everybody. So let me stop sharing my screen with you all here. Again, do a few introductions. Rynda, why don't you introduce yourself real quick here?
Well, hey, everybody. I'm Rynda Wilk, one of the college aid pros here on the team. And I feel like I've done this so many times, but we have a different group every week. So I have to do it again. Have a background in financial planning, financial coaching, and decided years ago that college planning was what I wanted to specialize in because I wanted to help you guys get through this without having a world of hurt down the road, trying to pay off exorbitant student loans. So that's how I got in this industry.
Fantastic. Yeah, and everybody, my name is Dan Bisig, and I've actually been an independent educational consultant for 17 years, but prior to that, for 18 years, I was a financial planner. And fell in love with the college process and was able to put both pieces of the puzzle together. Actually sold my insurance and investment business at the time and have been doing this full time now for 17 years. So truly a financial advisor for 25 years because I did these overlapping for about 8. But joined College Aid Pro in March of last year and have just really enjoyed helping families. You probably know this if you've been with us long enough. We work with families all across the United States. We even sometimes get international families that reach out to us with questions, but super excited to be with you. So I thought we would do something a little different tonight, which is just kind of throw a couple of tidbits out there from the admissions side. And maybe start a new tradition. I don't know, Rynda, we may go back and forth with this. We'll let you come up with it, or Chuck when he can join us. By the way, Chuck can't be with us tonight, but a did you know session. We'll have a little fun, but first question or first statement that I would make to you is, did you know that in the Common App, of course, there are 7 essay prompts, that students can choose from, but which one of those 7 do you think is the most often used? Take a guess, Rynda. Which one do you think it is?
Oh, this is not my area, Dan. You're
I
putting me
know.
on the
Well, but your
spot.
son kind of went through this not too long ago.
Yes,
So
he did. There's
just
one that's
take a,
really general that's like talk about your, I can't remember the wording though.
no, you're absolutely right. In fact, it's number 7, which is one that says you can use whatever prompt you want to, talk about whatever subject you want to. 24.1% of the applicants actually use that one essay prompt. And so it's pretty interesting. It's one of them that, and let's face it, the reason it's used so often is because of the fact that students, if they've actually written, say, a personal statement in their English class or something like that, well, then they've got an easy go-to for that type of thing. The problem is college admissions representatives know that. They know it's the most popular. So guess what? They're absolutely going to really scrutinize that particular essay. So students, beware. It really is a big deal out there. So often the easiest solution may not be the best solution for you when it comes to that essay that you're writing. And so moms and dads, get the word out, have them do something else. Another one I will tell you that sometimes comes up is the one about a challenge you faced and how you overcame it. And ironically, there are a lot of those. There are a lot of other places that particular essay can also be used. I've seen it before, scholarship websites that say, tell us about a challenge that you've overcome, or even colleges specifically that use that same prompt. So again, just keep in mind, sometimes it's easier to go with something that's much harder to write about and put a lot more effort into it and get the benefits of it. So, yeah. All right. So again, folks, we're here tonight to answer your questions, whatever questions you've got. If you've got financial aid questions, application questions, we'll try to do our best on that. Feel free to fire those over to us. Rynda, why don't we go ahead and start? Do you want to take the first one here?
I will do that. Let's see. Got a question. Is it a good idea to go ahead and order the IRS transcript now just to have it ready in case of income verification, or should I wait until FAFSA is available? Hey, if you have time to do it, go ahead and do it. Why not get one thing out of the way is what I say. What do you think, Dan?
Oh, totally agree with you. Yeah. It's so interesting because as we know, the FAFSA is going to be delayed until sometime in December. And so because of that, anything you can do in advance to pull things together would be fantastic, they're also asking for the link. I don't know, Rynda, maybe you can do a little bit of searching for that. I know it's out there pretty,
Yeah,
pretty
let
available.
me see if I can.
Google, ladies and gentlemen, is a wonderful tool as far as being able to find a lot of that kind of stuff. One other statement I'll make to you too, don't forget with the FAFSA that mom or dad and the students need to go ahead and set up their FSA IDs. So this is another great time that you can be doing that before you get too close to that date and then you're stressing out about it. So make sure that you take that into consideration. Okay. Again, folks, put your questions into the Q&A, not into the chat. So if you put it in the chat, do us a favor, copy and paste it over there for us. Just makes it easier for us. Thank you. Okay. We've got NN back. Hello, NN. So 2022 taxes filed jointly married, not legally separated. Court approved it. One parent who is filing the FAFSA needs to separate his income from jointly filed tax returns. That's true. Do you know FAFSA or college can ask to amend 2020 taxes as married, file single, and resubmit the amended tax before they approve aid or any aid if admitted? So I guess you're saying, do you know if that can be done? Honestly, I've never ever suggested that to anybody. I think it's just as easy if you can to split it apart when it comes to the tax return and just put down the details that they're looking for. Now, we've also got this new FAFSA simplification part of this, the FAFSA moving forward. So that may be a little bit more complicated to do, but I don't know. Rynda, what do you think about that?
It looks like she's asked, or they're asking if you should separate. So taking a married filing jointly tax return and separating it and actually refiling as married filing single is going to change a lot of things. because there are, deductions and credits that completely change. It's not like just a half and half situation when you file married filing single versus married filing jointly. So I don't think I would suggest doing that. And I don't think that the IRS or anyone would ask you to do that. I
No,
have a hard time
I've never
imagining.
had a school talk about doing that before ever. So, that's, to me, that's like you said, I think that's a little bit more complicated to try to make that happen versus just moving forward with splitting the numbers, based on how much parent one or parent two makes. So,
And
yeah,
let's talk about that a bit too, Dan, because I just sat in this past week, the walkthrough of the new FAFSA form. I don't know if you got a chance to sit in that.
I didn't know.
And they're basically requiring you to use the data retrieval tool now. So that's gonna kind of put a kink into folks trying to split the numbers up before they
Before they
file
do it.
FAFSA.
Yeah. Wow. What a mess. That's going to be an interesting diabolical problem that families are going to have to. It was so much easier to do that in the past. I wonder how they're going to handle it in the future. I don't know. Folks, stay tuned.
Yes.
It's obviously something we're going to have to all learn to live with when they roll this whole thing out in December, whenever that might happen. So let's see here. Got that. Okay, you want to do this next one?
Let's see. Someone asked for the link. Thank you. Okay. My kid just got dropped off at college. Congratulations. So did mine. Okay. So they're thanking us for our help, Dan. That makes me feel so good.
Hey, you guys are welcome. Love to help you.
What is the next deadline I should be paying attention to for next year? Well, it's probably going to be filing the FAFSA again. I hate to tell you.
Right. Yeah. Although, can you agree with me that the one advantage to being a second year is that there's not this pressure,
Right.
that second year. The schools know that. Now, you still have to get it done by a certain time, but it's not like you got to be right on there, in this case, in December to get that finished. Let everybody else deal with the chaos that's going to exist in December. And then maybe you work on it during the holidays, when things might slow down a little bit. Hopefully. I don't know. I say that, but we don't know again when it's going to roll out, do we?
No, we don't. And just so keep in mind, if you are getting need-based aid from your school, you need to fill out the FAFSA again. Or if you want to take a federal student loan, you need to fill out the FAFSA again. So not everybody necessarily has to do it every year, but most people probably do need to do it.
So there's another question here too that I'd love your input on here too, Rynda. It says, can you please provide an update on the 23-24 FAFSA changes and how that may change grant-based aid for students? I just dropped my daughter off at freshman year at financial aid officer, and the financial aid officer said the parent who takes the child as the tax deduction will now be required to fill out the FAFSA form, not the custodial parent. I'm split from the other parent, so this applies to my situation. Yeah, that's not the case.
That's not actually correct. It's the parent. Well,
No, that's okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the parent who provides the most financial support is the one who will need to fill out put their financial information into the FAFSA.
Right. So I'm not sure what this financial aid person was that was telling you this, but they are misinformed. In fact, ironically, I will tell you that in the past, people always thought it's the parent that's, what do we do if I'm taking them this year and they're taking them next year? I'm talking about in a divorce situation here. But it's never had any impact on financial aid. It's never ever been a deciding factor there. So just understand that, like Rynda said, it's truly that the parent who's providing the most financial support. Now, if you're 50-50, one of you needs to come out on top. Okay. One of you is going to have to be the parent who's providing more money. And so in that case, you need to really strategically think about that. And for those of you that have younger kids, that are on this and you're thinking about that ahead, you really do need to start working on that now. Because remember, the thing that's important about the financial aid documents is it's based on the tax return from 2 years prior. So that's why 2024 graduates, you're using your 2022 tax return. But when it comes to the assets, it's based on the value of the day or on the day that you submit those forms. So again, and also here's the other thing, and I think Peg shared this with us. It's based on like a 1 year when it comes to the income, though, isn't it?
Right.
In a
Well, for
divorce.
the child, for the parent who is providing the most financial support, it's a look back of the last 12 months.
Yes. Yep. So again, moms and dads, you better be talking about this. You better be considering it because it's something for sure that you need to be, up on top of. And so that you really know which of you is going to be that person. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one. You want to take it?
Well, they asked me to do it. I think that's referring.
It's that tax thing again about splitting it.
I don't think they're going to ask you to do it.
I don't think they are either. The only reason now that they might ask you to do it, I don't know how they could ask you to do it, but the only reason I could even think about it is if this total issue with them forcing the hand of the tax return not being split, there's got to be some kind of an avenue to be able to give them the details for that single parent. So
yeah, that's going to be interesting.
It is going to be interesting. Yeah. Again, stay tuned. We'll have to talk about that. That'll be a future conversation.
Okay. Well, I'll take this next one too, since that was kind of given.
Okay.
Are there any merit scholarship options for H-4 visa holders, non-permanent residents, non-citizens? So there are schools that offer scholarships for international applicants. And, that's just a matter of kind of looking at the individual schools' admission sites and finding schools that offer those. I will tell you, my memory is not perfect, but I did write an article about, things that international students applying in the US should be thinking about. And I will go and put that link to that article in the chat here in just a minute. If you want to add anything, Dan, or go to the next.
No. Like you said, and it's really true. You've got to just do your homework. You've got to look for the colleges out there that are doing this. I wish that I could tell you that there's one central location to see that type of stuff, but I would look at the individual schools and just know this, there is a difference between schools that offer international students merit aid, and there are some schools out there that also offer financial aid to them. It's using their own funds. So we have to be very clear about that. And so you've got to be very, very careful about doing that research. The one thing though about the MyCAP software is we do have some things in there that'll show some of those international scholarships. So if you haven't used the MyCAP software, you really ought to, dive into it and put in the details about where you guys are from, and hopefully some of those things will pop up for you. But worst case scenario, also call the colleges directly. Okay. All right. So can't get Parent Plus loans or even private loans due to bad credit. Can't obtain a home equity loan or refi due to bad credit. Guys, I'm so sorry to hear that. Previously, we had excellent credit, but credit got trashed during the pandemic. FAFSA and the schools look at my very good salary, but ignore the difficult financial straits we're in due to serious credit problems. I was denied my financial aid appeal by the school. My daughter has just written to the dean of schools, but no response yet, getting very nervous. Boy, I totally understand. I mean, so it sounds like you're already in a situation where your daughter's ready to head off to college and you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay the bill when it comes due. I wish there was a solution. I just don't know what you do in that case other than to have a conversation with not only the dean of schools, but the financial aid department, if I assume you've already done that, and the other thing I would say to you is you really have to make sure that your daughter has a backup plan. Is it possible because of where you guys are now that, and she's not going to want to hear this, and I understand that, but do you have the possibility that she could go to a local school, something, within driving distance of home, that maybe you guys can afford? Here's the other thing I will say. Don't forget that your daughter she can get the $5,500 direct federal loan, the student loan, without a job, without a credit score, without a cosigner. So she's guaranteed that $5,500 that she could use to help pay for college. Now, that may mean that she initially has to start off at like a community college. And then, you definitely want to talk about transferability, to other colleges that, could be out there, including any dreams that she has. But that would really be my best, suggestion until you can, get to the point. Because with bankruptcy, Rynda, help me with this one. Is it 2 or 3 years now that they look back on that? Or yeah, I'm not just with the credit history type of situation.
Well, bankruptcy, I mean, it usually washes off totally in 7 years, but unless they've changed something since the last time I looked into it. So, but it gradually goes away, the effect that it has on your credit score.
Yeah.
So the
right.
only other thing I can think of is if you're really confident that the amount you need to borrow is going to be affordable for I think it was your daughter to pay back once she graduates, it doesn't necessarily have to be the parent that co-signs. So if there's another family member or someone, a grandparent that's willing to do it,
Right. Yeah, that's very, very true. Yeah, that's definitely a solution that could be out there. Now, just realize that that's putting the burden on that other person to take out that loan. But, so there has to be a clear conversation that takes place in that case, because what we don't want to do is put you guys in a situation where suddenly you're looking at, dealing with the challenges that go along with that. If something were to happen in the future where, for whatever reason, your daughter misses a payment or something, that could really create a tough family conversation that's going on down the road. So, yeah, but again, I'm sorry that you're going through that. That's very, very tough. Tell you what, let me take this next one here. Is it okay to list 10 activities on the Common App, assuming they're of good quality, or does it look to these admissions officers that you're trying too hard? No, it really doesn't. So look, let's face it, if your student has done like an hour of something in a particular, like over the 4-year span of time that they were in high school, maybe that's stretching it a little bit. There is no doubt in my mind that they would like to see something that your students have been really committed to. So if that means, that it's a case where they are, actively involved in a sport, or they're doing a job, or they've done some volunteer types of things where they've really, really put hours into it, that's going to go much, much further ahead than saying that they maybe took an hour CPR class or something like that. It's more quality over quantity in that particular case. So that would be my advice to you. All right.
Okay, so this next one is a clarifying point on a former question, I think.
Right, that was the need-based grant.
Do you know what?
You're going to have to give us a little teaser on what the original was, because we've already moved on.
I think, well, so this person also asked about the 2023-24 FAFSA changes and how that may change grant-based aid for students. Oh, that was the question about, I'm sorry, I'm getting lost in the question. I'm trying to paraphrase. I'm not doing a good job. Dropped daughter off at freshman year. Financial aid officer said the parent who takes the child as a tax deduction will now be required to fill out the FAFSA form, not the custodial parent. I'm split from the other parent, so this applies to my situation. And then they said meant need-based grant.
I still don't think it has an impact. No, it's still, I don't know that it has. I mean, if they've changed that on us, that is a total shock, because for the last at least 17 years I've been doing this, it's never had anything to do with which parent claims them on the tax return. So
Yeah, definitely. The FAFSA form is the FAFSA form. I started to think, well, maybe they have their own proprietary form that you have to fill out.
Mhm.
But if it's the FAFSA, that's not how it works.
Nope, I agree.
Yeah, okay. So where are we? How to reduce
Um,
building asset values for business owned by parents.
and so this is kind of an interesting one, right? Because of the new changes. Why don't you explain what's going on with that?
So we're small businesses are now going to be required to report their net worth. And is that what you're referring to? Because I assume this is,
Yeah, that's really what's going on here. I mean, it's this whole
yeah,
thing about suddenly businesses weren't counted if it was less than 100 employees, and now every business is counted.
yes. And this is interesting too, because in the CSS profile, the small business has always been, you had to report a value, but they are specifically asking for net worth on the FAFSA, on the new FAFSA, which is different than a business value. So this is going to be interesting too, to see how the wording affects people's answers. And how would you reduce your building asset value for a business owned by a parent? Well, borrow against it. But then you have cash, so I'm not sure that helps you.
Yeah, that didn't help you. That's right. It's taking it from the left pocket and putting it in the
Yeah,
right pocket, and it's still
exactly.
there. It still has to be counted at 5.64%.
Yeah.
Um,
So, I don't know. Do you have any ideas, Dan? I mean,
what it's going to come down to is colleges are, well, number one, we have no idea how colleges are going to police this. Let's be very clear about that. No different than how they're going to police the whole divorce conversation that's going to take place as to which parent is really the custodial parent. There was some speculation that they were going to come back and look at the parent who had the highest AGI, adjusted gross income. But in this particular case, this is a brand new entity, a brand new deal that the FAFSA is going to start doing. And don't be surprised if they modify this over time, because they know everybody's going to be doing everything they can to reduce the value of that business. And so my suggestion is that, similar to what we talk about with like home equity, that you look at the value of what you think the building is worth. And then based on that, you look at, maybe comparables around your area, and you think about it. Hey, I've got to do a fire sale. I've got to sell this right now. What am I really going to get for this piece of property based on that kind of scenario? That would be my advice, is that you look at it. There's no
yeah,
doubt that you got to give it a value, right?
yeah. And I was going to say, I mean, I think that, like you mentioned, the quick sell value which is the same thing we do with home equity. When we're calculating that, knocking off 15-20% off the fair market value to come up with that number. So yeah, I think that's it, fair for sure. And also I will point out, and this is in another article on our blog, that with the new rules with the business valuation, they're giving you a break as far as how much of the net worth that you report counts against you for the SAI, or the student aid index. So, and I'll put the link in the chat, but for example, for a net worth of up to 135,000. So if your business net worth is up to $135,000, the adjusted net worth would be your net worth times 40%. And then that would be what would be used to calculate the amount that
So they're truly giving you a discount, aren't they? They're
they're giving
instead
you
of
a discount.
Yeah, so they're not taking the 130,000 or 100 whatever against the family. They're actually reducing it down. So
Yeah. So yeah, so it's not, it may not be as big of a hit as some people are worried that it's going to be because of that.
no, that's really good to know. And just so that you all know, that's the way the income bracket works too. It doesn't start at 47% of the income. It starts at 22% and works its way up to 47% of that total number. So it sounds like that's the way that they're approaching this too, is that they're giving you a bit of a break with those, those numbers at the bottom and then working up from that, of course. So that should be a positive for sure.
Yep.
Okay, let's see here. What do we have here? If you get direct admission at the University of California, at the same time you get a transfer guarantee at the same university through community college, do you recommend a student reject direct admission and go to the community college for 2 years and get transferred and then transfer to the same university he or she rejected direct admission? You know what I think it comes, what are you gonna say, Rynda?
I was going to say this actually came up in a conversation I had with a friend this week, believe it or not.
Really?
And I don't remember the specifics, but you're really going to have to look closely at the program and the school system that it's in. And because somehow it, she had 2 daughters, they were both trying to do the same, get into the same program. One went directly in, one went to the 2-year community, 2-year program, and then rolled into the program, and it affected something. One had an opportunity that the other didn't have. I don't even remember the details, but that my point is to say it really just depends on the specifics of the program, and you have to read all the fine print. What were you going to say, Dan?
No, I totally agree, because here's the thing. Number one, is it an affordability conversation that's driving it? If it's an affordability conversation, then yeah, it might be the right thing to start out at the community college if they have a direct transferability policy in place. However, there's always a however. The however is back to what Rynda was just talking about. What if it turns out that the truth is, because you did those 2 years at the other school, it's going to take you now 5 years to graduate because you don't have the credits that you need or the types of courses. Let's say it's an engineering that you want to go into or something else, or a nursing program. Who knows? I mean, I'm just using those 2 as examples. So I think you've got to be careful about that because it truly comes down to that transferability. So for the family, could it be the right choice from an affordability standpoint? Absolutely, it could. But in the long run, it might take longer, which means it could be more expensive, possibly. So that's one of those where you just have to do the research. You got to connect the dots and figure out what's going to be the right alternative there.
Okay. Moving on, looking at my student aid index on the software, it increased by $4,000, even though I didn't change my profile at all. Is that because there is a bigger emphasis on assets due to the FAFSA Simplification Act? I would need someone from our back end team to try to answer this. It probably depends on when this happened and if there were any changes made. How would you answer that, Dan?
Yeah. All I can tell you for sure, that's probably what's happening. Just so that you know, behind the scenes, our data scientists are right now, and our programmers are in the process of rolling in the balance of the FAFSA simplification specifications. What you have to realize is there's a lot more than what you just think there is. There's details about what makes families Pell eligible, for example, and how you deal with the negative 1,500 AGI that could be in there now, and how child support is handled, and again, this whole business thing we were just talking about, and the elimination of all these untaxed items like your 401k plan, which used to get added back to the income, is no longer added in. For whatever reason, recently I've been working with some clergy, and the 2 of them both had housing allowance amounts that showed up on their tax returns that in the past were added in, by the way, are no longer added in. So just know this: within the next week and a half, 2 weeks, the software is going to be fully involved with having all those little nuances in there, and that's probably what happened. There might be a little something that happened where it got tweaked, and I hate to hear that it went up by $4,000. I mean, that's something you don't like to see. But again, the bigger deal is there's got to be something going on behind the scenes that maybe did that. Mm-hmm. So I hope that's not an example of what's coming for everybody out there, is that they're suddenly going to this FAFSA Simplification Act was supposed to make things better for families, and reality is it's not. Although, here's one question. Is it possible? Do you have two kids in college at the same time? And that maybe from the last time you looked at it to now, that maybe there was a little something happened there with the multi-student discounting. I don't know. I mean, we're just speculating at this point, but maybe that's what's going on. So.
Okay. Okay. I haven't entered any, this is the next question.
Yeah. Yep.
I haven't entered any junk number, but straight from 1040 of 2022. MyCAP software doesn't have a separate entry field for interest or dividend earned by parents. MyCAP asks to include all of the interest or dividend into the parent gross earnings entry field. When I went to college, the net price calculator had a separate entry field for the same and changed the total cost per year. Any idea why that is? The new FAFSA is basically looking at AGI, right? I mean, there's not as many adjustments that are being made to it as there used to be. So, and I'm not sure when you went to school, but I know it's a lot different than when I went to school. So.
Many moons ago, Rynda, many moons ago.
Yeah. Do you have anything else on that, Dan?
Well, so here's the thing. You brought up a really interesting thing here. You brought up net price calculator. And actually, we had a conversation about this, and we always have conversations about these old dreaded net price calculators because they're not all created equally. Some are really good. I mean, some are very accurate. In fact, I would put kudos out there for the College of Worcester in Ohio. They do a really nice job, and they're also very transparent in scholarships that students will get. But then you got American University, which is using the federal formula, which is garbage because of the fact it uses a range of income and a range of assets, which means what? You're getting a guesstimate as far as what your number is going to be.
Yeah.
And so, which is incredible to me that a school of that sophistication decided to go with that. And what that shows you is that these net price calculators, that these colleges can just, they can do it willy-nilly. They can hire whoever they want to build their calculators and give you whatever numbers they want you to build and get to you. So what I would say to you is this. I'm pretty confident I'm right on this. Hopefully I'm not going to get in trouble for saying this, but I think what's coming with a future iteration of the MyCAP is that not only we're going to give folks the ability to make a choice. You can either put your gross numbers in if that's easier for you to put in, or you can put your adjusted gross income numbers in. And so you're probably going to see some changes like that will impact those numbers. But even with that, here's what you need to know, folks. We've had individuals, families, and even advisors that'll run these numbers. And it's amazing how close the numbers often come to compared to even these net price calculators that are out there. I mean, it really is. So if the numbers are off one way or the other, a couple of $100, I think we can all agree that's pretty doggone good when you're dealing with as many variables as come into the price of these schools, because we know that these colleges are often producing numbers or sharing numbers that are sometimes, 2-3 years old anyway. So until they lock in what the tuition rates are and the housing rates are going to be and all those kinds of things, there's a lot of stuff that's up in the air on that. So I don't know. I'm always impressed whenever I hear that these incredible stories about, folks that they've tested us, they've tried to run us up against net price calculators. And a lot of times they come in, where our numbers were spot on or close to being spot on to what they actually received. So. Yeah,
we got a thank you just this past week or the week before. Did you see that, Dan, where someone was, writing us to let us know that we did better than the net price calculator, and they were really thankful. So
yeah, now think about that. And by the way, it wasn't for one college. It was for 5 colleges, wasn't it?
It's for multiple colleges.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, we know that you're going to get your final financial aid offers that come in the spring. And, that's the time of reckoning when you've got to decide what you're going to do based on, how that's all worked out. So.
Yep.
Other questions, comments, emotional outbursts from anybody? We appreciate you all.
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Go for it.
Is College Aid Pro software updated for new FAFSA on pre-tax retirement contribution that reduces AGI. Looks like it is still needed to be reported. Can you clarify? That's true. It does still ask you to put in your pre-tax contribution amount in the software, at least as of maybe yesterday.
Yeah.
Will increased retirement contribution help to qualify for more financial aid? So the answer to the first question is, I don't know. I was
I'm
under the
pretty sure.
impression that it had been already fixed, but maybe they just never took the data entry, the data question out. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, so the retirement question is in there, but here's what I would suggest that you do: play around with it. You know, put $10,000 in that retirement, and then go to your SAI and see if it went up based on that contribution amount. I don't think that the federal SAI does, but the institutional will. You know, because they're still going to take that into consideration.
And which is probably why the question's still in there. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense, Dan.
Yeah.
And then will increasing your retirement contribution help to qualify you for more financial aid? It could. But make sure it's a pre-tax contribution through your payroll. In that case, it will reduce your SAI, which may, in some cases, increase the amount of aid you would be offered.
However, again, that however is that if you contribute, if you're self-employed and contribute to a SEP, or you do a deductible IRA that's on the front of your tax return, that gets added back in, and that stinks. Okay, let's just agree with it. It's a real bummer that exists, and that's what happens. And so, as Rynda said, it has to be pre-tax dollars for that to work. Hopefully one of these days they'll fix that. I don't know how they let that slip through, because it's unfair to, again, the small business owner. This is who we're talking about. You guys are getting nailed both with having to come up with a value and with those retirement contributions if you're doing deductible IRAs or SEPs. And regardless, when it comes to the CSS profile, those always get added in. So it's always going to bump your income, which means that you're getting less financial aid. And let's be very clear. That's because the CSS profile is very intrusive. It's asking you all kinds of things, including the fact that colleges like Harvard ask you what make, model, and value you put on the vehicles that you drive. Okay, and by the way, they're not alone. There's other colleges that do the same thing, but that's pretty amazing, you know?
Yes.
So, okay, let me take this one. Regarding the American Opportunity Tax Credit, is the deposit you send to the school, if for a source other than 529 plans, part of the $4,000 to pay from another source in order to qualify for the tax credit? Yeah, I would think so. I mean, the deposit as well as the bulk of the money that you send in, I would think that would qualify for part of that. Wouldn't you think, Rynda? I mean, it's money that's going towards the school, I think. Deposit. She's talking specifically about the deposit.
You're talking about like the $100 that you send?
Say it's $100, $350, housing deposit, whatever it gets sent in. Could
Yeah,
that be?
So that counts. That's gonna be, I mean, typically that means that's just $100 less you have to pay when you actually pay your bill for the fall semester.
Yeah, so right. I do think that would be accurate. That should work. As long as it comes out of your pocket, not out of a 529 plan. So, and I'm glad you put that on the question, because it's really true. You can't double dip. I wish you wish you could, but you can't. So,
do some smaller public universities genuinely have very minimal funding for merit scholarships for out-of-state students? I was told by UNC Asheville that merit scholarships for out-of-state students are generally around $2,500, which seems very negligible. It probably does feel negligible to you, although, I mean, actually for you to get a merit-based scholarship as an out-of-state student to a public university is pretty good. It's definitely not a given that you're going to get merit aid to any public school, and especially if you're an out-of-state student. Think about it. Those schools are heavily underwritten or whatever, funded by the state. And so naturally the state is going to want to favor helping their own students, their own in-state residency go to school. So.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say there, however, what's interesting is that there definitely are some schools that are doing everything they can to attract out-of-state students. University of Alabama. Used to be the University of South Carolina, but I think they've got a little tighter with their reins on that kind of stuff. You often also see it with competing regional colleges, up by me. There's a couple of schools like up in Michigan that give great in-state, out-of-state. I mean, they're very, very comparable rates. Now, here's the difference. They're not the big boys. They're not the University of Michigans and Michigan States. They're going to be what I refer to as more the regional colleges that are trying to attract students, by doing that. And even sometimes so I'm in the state of Kentucky, and we have this thing called the Keys Scholarship, which is funded by the lottery money within the state. And when students go out of state, with some exceptions, because we also have a thing called the Academic Common Market, but the students lose that money, and it's a $10,000 scholarship split over $2,500 per year. So if they go across the river to, for example, the University of Cincinnati, they don't get to take that money with them. However, some of the private colleges, which of course are significantly more expensive, will throw a little Keys grant at students, to try to entice them to come there. So you just have to do your homework on that, and look for those kinds of opportunities out there. They do exist, especially again with these things like the tuition exchanges that sometimes do exist from one state to the other. So. Let's see here. Just trying to shrink some of these down based on what we've already answered. Well, do we have any other questions, folks? Anything at all that's coming up? It's the hour of 7:47 on the East Coast anyway. For those of you that maybe are on the West Coast, we appreciate you joining us at 3:47. Excuse me, 4:47. Yeah, what am I thinking? 4:47. But we'll give you just a couple of minutes here, and if you don't have any other questions, we'll call it a night. We hope this has been helpful.
Dan, let's see. I think
Go for it.
A couple of new ones might be in here. Case of separated parents. If one parent has no income for 2022, do you still submit the CSS profile of that parent? Yes,
Yes.
The CSS, they want everything from everybody.
However, there are some colleges out there that don't take the non-custodial parent.
Okay.
But something tells me if they have no income, you're absolutely wanting to use that family if it's a joint, 50-50 situation for custody. But yeah, I mean, Rynda's absolutely right on. You better believe they're going to want that information submitted. And it truly does come down to custodial, non-custodial. One of the things that you can do is very simply, and I'll put this into the chat box, but just actually, I'm just going to tell you, just Google CSS profile colleges. And I promise you, when it comes up, it's CSS profile participating institutions. You'll see that it's this really nice purple chart. And on the right-hand side, 2 columns over, it says non-custodial parent. It'll either have a yes or it'll have a no as to whether or not you need to include them. And so surprisingly, a school like UNC Chapel Hill does not require the non-custodial parent. At least they didn't. They could always change that, but that's an advantage to that family that's trying to qualify for a bunch of financial aid. Now, in the past, it was again the parent who is providing, or it was the parent with whom the student lived 51% of the time. Moving forward, it's the parent again who provides the most financial support. So that could blow up that whole thing. So just know that going in. Let's see.
I'm not sure this last one. Will FAFSA look back?
Will FAFSA look back, I guess, at assets?
Assets?
No, I mean, they shouldn't. But remember, it's the value of assets on the day you submit the financial aid form. It's the income that we're talking about that they're looking back 2 years on. So, that shouldn't be a problem. The answer to the most popular prompt used for the personal statement is number 7. Number 7. And that's the one that says, you can write on any essay topic, use any prompt that you want to, or you can even use one that you wrote in high school. It's that I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that's the one that it is. 24.1%.
All right, so this person clarified, they're asking, will the FAFSA look back at assets value dated back 1 year ago or the date it is filed? It is the date it is filed.
Okay, someone's asking, what is 24.1%? That's 24.1% of the 100% of Common Up essays that are submitted. So think about that. That's a pretty big chunk. When there's 7 essay prompts and 24.1% of the time they're using essay number 7. Now, I've got my opinion about that, is the fact that we've got some students out there that are lazy and just want to use something they've already written. Okay, maybe not all the time. It's not always that case, but sometimes students, quite frankly, they read the option or essay prompts 1 through 6, and they can't find anything that they can relate to. I mentioned earlier the idea about the challenge essay. And there's a lot of students that say, Dan, I've never had a challenge. I've never had any issues. I've lived a pretty good life, even in spite of COVID, things were okay. And if that's the case, then, then suddenly they may have to kind of scramble and find what they're going to write about. And maybe they have something that's pretty outstanding. So I shouldn't put everybody into that same box. Okay. But, just understand that that's sometimes what happens there. Okay. Well, Rynda,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think we might be finished for the night unless something else pops up here. Oh, here's one. If grandparents who owns a 529 plan dies, whose asset will it belong to? Everybody that has a 529 plan likely has a backup owner, and it's not uncommon for the backup owner to be either the other grandparent or the child, their child, the parent of the child. You agree with me on that, Rynda?
Yeah, most likely that's the case.
Yeah, well, in fact, if the financial planner somehow didn't have that happen, then that was a mistake on their part, because then that 529 plan becomes part of their estate and they got to deal with that whole mess of figuring out how to unscramble that. And I don't know, I don't know enough about that as to how that gets straightened out. So
No, I've never had to do that. So thank goodness.
yeah, I didn't either. Not in my right, not in all my years of doing the financial planning. Never had to worry about that. But hey, by the way, 529 plans are fantastic, owned by a grandparent, because they never show up anymore from the federal side. Let's be very clear. They do not show up from the federal side. But then there's that whole other diabolical side, the CSS profile, institutional side, where they will. And they have to be disclosed. And then it's in the hands of the college financial aid officer as to what they want to do there. So if your kids are applying to the bulk of colleges out there that are strictly FAFSA only, congratulations. It could work to your advantage.
Yep.
All right. Well, people keep throwing a couple of little grenades at us, and it's kind of fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll answer these easy ones. We've had some of the tougher ones tonight.
Right.
Hope you folks have enjoyed this time, though. I mean, we really do have fun doing this stuff, and we're giving you our best, our years of experience of doing this. And also, I hope you can tell, we're also telling you the truth when we don't know the full answer, because there's so much up in the air right now when it comes to, to this whole thing. So do us a favor. Don't put your questions into the chat box, the Q&A, but the question came up, can parents contribute to a grandparent's 529 plan? The answer is absolutely yes. You can do that. Anybody can contribute to that 529 plan. It still comes back to who the owner is, which is the grandparents. Oh, by the way, and I bet you, Rynda, you've seen this, and we'll continue to see this. So many times families mess up and they think that 529 plan, because it's for the child, that it's the child's assets. I've seen that pretty recently in some of the questionnaires from some of the new families that we're starting to work with. And that's not at all the case, is it?
No, it's not. And it's really, it really hurts families who make that mistake when they're filing their FAFSA. So don't put your 529 balance in the child's as your child's asset. Make sure you put it as you as the parent's asset. And also a change that apparently they mentioned in the FAFSA run through that I've sat in is they were asking for the sum of all 529s, even those, where the sibling of the student in question was the beneficiary. All of that was being added together for the FAFSA, and now they're just asking for the 529 balance of the student for whom the FAFSA is being filed. That doesn't mean that's going to be the case on the CSS profile, but
Right.
That's the way they're asking it now on the FAFSA, apparently.
Yeah, that really is a win, by the way. I always thought it was unfair that they were asking for those assets to be counted against the family.
Yeah.
I mean, I somewhat understood that it was their total asset pool of money, but still, that money's set aside. It's never going to get in that other kid's, pocket to use for college. So the fact that they finally got smart about that and said, we're not going to count it is truly a good thing.
Yes.
Okay. I think we're at a close. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for joining us tonight. Rynda and I've really enjoyed doing this with you. And if you've got additional questions, spread the word. Tell everybody out there, that we've got this. I mean, think about it. It's a free resource, right? Where you can come and get your questions answered. But we'll be back in a couple of weeks again. Wait a minute. Hang on a second. Is that true? No, it's Labor Day. We're off for Labor Day Monday. So we will not be back in 2 weeks. We'll be back in 4 weeks. And so it'll be a little bit of time before we're back, but don't forget about all the fantastic webinars that College Aid Pro does. Anytime you've got a chance to attend those, I encourage you to, because there's an incredible amount of information that we share. And you also get a copy of the PowerPoints. Excuse me. No, you get a copy of the recordings moving forward. So you'll just get a copy of the recording. So thanks everybody for attending. Rynda, it was great to see you.
You too,
And
Dan.